More now on the other major merger confirmed today. Halliburton, the world's second largest oilfield services company, has agreed to buy out the rival Baker Hughes, number 3 in the business, for nearly $35 billion in cash and stock. The deal was driven by the 30% tumble in oil prices just since June. It's forced energy companies to cut costs and streamline production, making less work for both companies. Shares of Baker Hughes today up about 9%, but Halliburton fell nearly 11%.
Another deal is also making headlines today. Pfizer is teaming up with German drug company Merck to develop a drug to treat cancerous tumors. Pfizer will pay Merck $850 million up front, plus a percentage of sales. The drug maker also lowered its 2014 profit outlook in part because of the cancer treatment partnership.
And yet another possible merger that was reportedly in the discussion stage last week has apparently broken down. The Wall Street Journal says that deal talks between DreamWorks Animation and the toy maker Hasbro have hit a major snag over the structure of the combined company, and that those talks are not likely to resume. Hasbro shares weren't playing around today, rising more than 4%, but the curtain really did come down on shares of DreamWorks. They lost 14%.
On Wall Street today, stocks traded in a narrow range of gains and losses, despite all that merger activity and expectations for additional stimulus measures in Europe and Japan. The Dow added 13 points, the Nasdaq was down 17, and a 1-point gain in the S&P was just enough to notch a new record high.
More now on Japan. It's the latest global economy getting weaker instead of stronger. Today, Japan reported really terrible economic data despite massive, even unprecedented efforts to stimulate the economy. Michelle Caruso-Cabrera has the story.
Economists had expected Japan's economy to expand last quarter by more than 2%. Instead, the Japanese economy declined by 1.6%. This after it fell a whopping 7% last quarter. So Japan is now officially in recession. Economists blamed it on a big increase in the national sales tax earlier in the year, which the government raised from 5% to 8% back in April. They thought those effects would have finally worn off by now, but they didn't. The Japanese economy has struggled for nearly 2 decades. When measured in yen, that's Japan's currency, the Japanese economy is roughly the same size that it was back in the late 90s. This must be incredibly disappointing to the leader of Japan, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. When taking office, he promised that both the federal government and the central bank would do much, much more to stimulate the economy. There would be more deficit spending and printing money. Today's results raise questions about the future of any further measures. When it comes to Japan's effect on the United States, one member of the U.S. Federal Reserve says it just adds to the global headwinds blowing on an otherwise improving U.S. economy.
The issue for us, it really is global growth is weakening in a number of jurisdictions. Europe is very weak. China has weakened. Japan is weak. There is weakness in Latin America. We haven't felt that here in the United States yet. But the risk really is that we will begin to feel it through the trade channel or other channels. But again, we don't feel it yet.
We expect to hear from the Prime Minister of Japan overnight to decide whether or not he's going to cancel yet another increase in the country's national sales tax, which had been planned for next year. Nightly Business Report, Michelle Caruso-Cabrera.